There is a desert in southern Israel, barren, scorched, windswept, a place where the sun beats down so hard it splits the earth. And buried beneath that desert, beneath the cracked, sun-bleached sand of the Negev, sits one of the most carefully guarded secrets in the entire history of human civilization. A secret so explosive, so consequential, so world-altering that entire governments have been built around protecting it. A secret that presidents died knowing. A secret that a lone whistleblower sacrificed 18 years of his life to expose. A secret that the entire world whispers about, but almost nobody dares say out loud. Tonight, that secret is no longer a secret. Tonight, everything changes. Welcome. And if you have never heard the full, unfiltered, terrifying truth about what Israel has been hiding in the Negev desert for over 60 years, then buckle in. Because what you are about to hear is not a conspiracy theory. It is not speculation. It is not fringe politics. Every single word of what follows is documented, sourced, verified, and confirmed by nuclear experts, intelligence agencies, former government officials, and satellite imagery that the whole world can now see with its own eyes. This is the story of the greatest nuclear deception in modern history, and it is happening right now. Let us go back, all the way back to the beginning. It is 1958. The state of Israel is barely 10 years old. It has already survived one war of annihilation. Its founders know with absolute bone-chilling certainty that the wolves are circling. David Ben-Gurion, the founding father, the man who declared Israeli independence while the world held its breath, makes a decision. A decision so secret that even his own cabinet ministers are not fully informed. He picks up the phone, he calls France, at the time a close Israeli ally, and he says 3 words that will reshape the Middle East forever. We need a reactor. And France delivers. French engineers, French technology, French silence. In the middle of the Negev desert, in a desolate patch of earth near a small town called Dimona, construction begins on what will become the most controversial nuclear facility on the planet. And here is where the deception begins. When American intelligence planes fly over the site, high-altitude U-2 spy planes scanning every square mile of the Middle East, Israeli officials look them square in the eye and say, "Oh, that is a textile plant, a research facility, completely civilian, nothing to worry about." The Americans were not fooled, not even close, but they played along. Why? We will get to that. Because the answer to that question is perhaps the most disturbing part of this entire story. The reactor went active somewhere between 1962 and 1964, and from that moment forward, deep beneath the desert floor, in levels and chambers that no international inspector has ever been permitted to see, Israel began manufacturing the most destructive weapons ever created by human hands: plutonium, nuclear warheads, a secret arsenal, growing quietly, silently, year after year, warhead by warhead, while the world looked the other way. By 1967, just 9 years after construction began, American intelligence assessed that Israel was, in their own words, 6 to 8 weeks from the bomb. By the time the Six-Day War erupted in June of that year, Israel almost certainly had operational nuclear warheads ready for use. Think about that. In one of the most volatile, chaotic, explosive conflicts of the 20th century, one of the combatant nations was sitting on nuclear weapons, and nobody said a word. President John F. Kennedy was not willing to stay silent. Kennedy pressed hard. He wrote letter after letter to Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion demanding inspection access to Dimona. He was suspicious. He was persistent. He was, by all accounts, furious at the runaround he was getting. Ben-Gurion stalled. He offered limited visits with advance notice, visits that gave Israel plenty of time to disguise what was really happening underground. He fed inspectors a carefully designed fiction, a theatrical set, a propaganda stage, where certain sections of the nuclear plant were concealed, others carefully disguised, and American visitors were led through a sanitized version of reality. Kennedy pressed harder, and then in November of 1963, Kennedy was assassinated. Under President Lyndon Johnson, the pressure on Israel evaporated almost overnight. The program continued without interruption. By 1969, a secret agreement was reached. President Richard Nixon met privately with Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. The deal was simple, devastating in its implications, but simple. Israel would not test nuclear weapons. Israel would not publicly acknowledge its nuclear arsenal. And in return, the United States would stop pressuring Israel to allow inspections or to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Henry Kissinger, Nixon's national security advisor, put the American position into words that have never been forgotten. While we might ideally like to halt actual Israeli possession, what we really want at a minimum may be just to keep Israeli possession from becoming an established international fact. Read that again. The United States government, the self-proclaimed guardian of global nuclear non-proliferation, officially decided that as long as Israel kept its bombs a secret, Washington would pretend those bombs did not exist. This policy, this elaborate institutionalized fiction, was given a name in Hebrew, amimut, strategic ambiguity. It became the cornerstone of Israeli nuclear doctrine. Not a genuine state of uncertainty, but a performance, a carefully maintained institutionally enforced theater of denial, serving one specific legal function: to give Washington legal cover to maintain foreign aid flows that American domestic law would otherwise prohibit for a country in possession of nuclear weapons. And so the world went along with it, for decade after decade, through wars, through crises, through revolutions. The secret stayed buried in the Negev sand, until one man decided he could not stay silent any longer. His name was Mordecai Vanunu, and what he did in 1986 is one of the most extraordinary acts of individual courage or betrayal, depending on who you ask, in the history of the nuclear age. Vanunu was born in Morocco in 1954, immigrated to Israel as a child, and eventually found work as a technician at the Negev Nuclear Research Center near Dimona. He worked there for 9 years. 9 years of access to places that no outsider had ever seen. 9 years of watching, learning, and growing increasingly horrified by what he witnessed. In the underground chambers beneath Dimona, far below the levels that American inspectors had ever been allowed to visit, Vanunu saw the truth. Israel was not running a research facility. Israel was manufacturing nuclear weapons on an industrial scale. In 1985, facing dismissal from his job, Vanunu did something breathtaking in its audacity. He brought a camera into the most secret areas of the Dimona facility and took 57 photographs. Photographs of plutonium production equipment, photographs of warhead components, photographs of a weapons complex so advanced it shocked the entire global intelligence community. Then he left Israel, traveled through Nepal and Australia, converted to Christianity, and eventually made contact with the Sunday Times of London. On October 5, 1986, the Sunday Times published the bombshell. The headline read, "Revealed: The Secrets of Israel's Nuclear Arsenal." The report claimed Israel had been producing nuclear weapons for 2 decades at a secret underground facility and possessed a stockpile of between 100 and 200 warheads, vastly exceeding any previous estimates. Nuclear experts who reviewed Vanunu's photographs were stunned. Theodore Taylor, a student of Robert Oppenheimer himself, the father of the atomic bomb, reviewed the evidence and declared there should no longer be any doubt that Israel is, and for at least a decade has been, a fully fledged nuclear weapons state. The Israeli nuclear weapons program is considerably more advanced than indicated by any previous report or conjectures of which I am aware. But here is the part of the story that most people never hear. Before that article even hit the newsstands, Vanunu had disappeared. He had been lured from his London hotel to Rome by a Mossad operation of staggering precision. A female Mossad agent operating under the alias Cindy posed as an American tourist, feigned romantic interest in Vanunu, and convinced him to travel with her to Rome. The moment he arrived, other agents were waiting. He was drugged, bundled onto a cargo ship, and transported back to Israel under conditions of total secrecy. He was tried behind closed doors. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison, 11 of which he spent in solitary confinement. His crime, according to the Israeli government, was espionage and treason. His crime, according to the rest of the world, was telling the truth. Vanunu was released in 2004, but his punishment did not end with his release. To this day, he is forbidden from leaving Israel. He is forbidden from speaking to foreign journalists. He is forbidden from discussing his work at Dimona. The man who blew the whistle on the greatest nuclear secret of the 20th century remains effectively imprisoned in the country that imprisoned him. His voice muzzled, his freedom an illusion, his message suppressed. And what was his message? It was simple. It was devastating. It was the same in 1986 as it was in 2004, as it is today. Open the Dimona reactor for inspection. That has never happened. Not once. Israel has never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Israel has never submitted to International Atomic Energy Agency inspection of Dimona. Israel operates entirely outside the international nuclear accountability framework that every other nuclear state, declared or suspected, is expected to engage with. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, in its 2025 report, estimated Israel's stockpile at approximately 90 nuclear warheads. Other estimates put the number far higher, some as elevated as 400. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists puts the number at around 90, with enough fissile material stockpiled for potentially 300 more. Let that sink in. 300 more. The material to build 300 nuclear weapons, sitting in the desert, uninspected, unacknowledged, hidden behind 6 decades of official silence. Now fast forward to today. And this is where the story takes a turn that should make every person watching this stop breathing for a moment. In September of 2025, satellite images captured by Planet Labs were analyzed by 7 independent nuclear experts. What those images showed was startling: massive, intensive construction activity at the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center near Dimona. A major new structure was being built. 3 of the 7 experts concluded it was most likely a new heavy water reactor. All 7 agreed. Whatever it was linked to Israel's nuclear weapons program. Jeffrey Lewis of the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies said it plainly. It's probably a reactor. It's very hard to imagine it as anything else. Daryl Kimball of the Arms Control Association was blunter still. If it's a heavy water reactor, they're seeking to maintain the capability to produce spent fuel that they can then process to separate plutonium for more nuclear weapons, or they are building a facility to maintain their arsenal or build additional warheads. Edwin Lyman of the Union of Concerned Scientists added a chilling observation. Israel doesn't allow any international inspections or verification of what it's doing, which forces the public to speculate. Let that irony land with full force. The world's most powerful undeclared nuclear state, a state building what appears to be a new reactor for weapons production, is not subject to a single inspection, a single verification, a single accountability mechanism of any kind. Meanwhile, that same state, with the full military and diplomatic backing of the United States, spent the better part of 2 years engaged in a campaign to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities on the grounds that Iran might be developing nuclear weapons capability. Iran, which is actually a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran, which does submit to international inspection regimes, however imperfectly. And Iran, which has never possessed a single nuclear warhead. The word for this is not just hypocrisy. The word for this is world historical double standard. And in March of 2026, the world got its most visceral reminder yet of just how dangerous that double standard has become. American forces conducted strikes on Iran's Natanz nuclear enrichment facility. The bombs used were massive bunker busters, designed to penetrate deep underground and destroy fortified facilities. Within hours, Iran struck back, and the target it chose was not a military base, not a port, not a power station. Iran's missiles flew toward Dimona. They landed 14 kilometers from the reactor. 47 people were injured. Buildings nearby were damaged. The reactor itself was not hit, but the message was unmistakable. Iran demonstrated in the most dramatic terms possible that it knows exactly where Dimona is, exactly what is in it, and exactly how to reach it. Israel's decades-old policy of nuclear ambiguity, mute, suddenly did not look like a shield. It looked like a vulnerability. By refusing to acknowledge its arsenal, Israel has avoided international scrutiny. But that same secrecy makes Dimona a target, an unspoken target, hidden in plain sight, circled by foreign missile trajectories, known to every intelligence agency on Earth. Secrecy has preserved deterrence. And it has also created the conditions for catastrophe, because here is the nightmare scenario that nuclear experts do not like to say out loud. What happens if Dimona is hit? A strike on a nuclear reactor in the Negev desert would not just damage a building, it could release radioactive contamination across a region home to hundreds of millions of people. It could trigger responses that dwarf anything the world has seen since Nagasaki. It could set in motion a chain of events that the architects of Amamamut sitting in their cold, careful offices in 1969 never fully imagined. The world was built on a fiction. The fiction that nuclear weapons are only a problem when countries we disapprove of possess them. The fiction that one country in the Middle East can sit outside every treaty, every inspection regime, every accountability framework, and that this is somehow a guarantee of stability rather than a powder keg. The fiction that strategic ambiguity is policy, when in reality it is a performance, a legal maneuver, a 60-year act of institutional theater maintained by mutual consent between 2 governments, at the expense of the entire rest of the planet. Benunu understood this. That is why he took those 57 photographs. That is why he went to the Sunday Times. That is why he spent 11 years in solitary confinement. Not because he wanted to destroy Israel, but because he believed naively, perhaps, but genuinely, that a world in which hidden nuclear arsenals are permitted to exist in the name of strategic convenience is a world that has already lost control of its own survival. He was right then. He is more right now than he has ever been. Because now the missiles have come. Now the satellite images are circling the globe. Now the construction cranes at Dimona are visible to any person with an internet connection. Now the Iron Curtain of Ambiguity is being lit from the outside by the fires of a regional war that nobody can fully contain. The secret is out. The world knows. The world has always known. And the most dangerous thing of all, the thing that should keep every serious person up at night, is that knowing has changed almost nothing. 60 years of silence. 60 years of denial. 60 years of the most consequential open secret in the history of nuclear weapons. And tonight, in the desert near Dimona, construction crews are still working. New structures are still rising from the sand. Whatever they are building down there, whatever new chapter of this story is being written beneath those cranes, the world is not being told. The world is not being asked, which the world is simply expected, as it has always been expected, to look the other way. But the missiles that landed near Dimona did not look away. Iran did not look away. The satellite cameras did not look away. And if the world continues to pretend that one country's nuclear weapons are legitimate while every other nation's are a threat to civilization, then the desert will not stay quiet much longer. The sand is patient. The sand does not care about policy. The sand does not understand a mimet. The sand just holds secrets until the day they explode. That day is closer than you think. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and never ever stop asking the questions that the powerful want you to stop asking. This has been your briefing. And nothing about this story is over.